Hello, everyone. Good evening, good morning, wherever you're watching us from. My name is Dalal, and I am your GMAT Club moderator today. First and foremost, we are very sorry for the technical difficulties that we had. We had to deal with some issues with Zoom, so we transferred to StreamYard, and we apologize to our guest host today and everyone who's watching. So today I'm very excited to walk you through the Haas application with our incredible host, Linda Abraham from accepted.com. And I'm going to give the mic to Linda to introduce herself.
Thank you very much, Dalal. Thank you for having me. Thank you to the GMAT Club for hosting this event and inviting me to participate. I founded Accepted in 1994. We've been on the web since 1996. I'm also the co-founder of the Association of International Graduate Admissions Consultants. I've been interviewed by the Wall Street Journal, US News, CBS News, various other media outlets about MBA admissions, and I'm really happy to walk you through the Haas application today.
Thank you so much, Linda. We are very happy to have you today. I heard that you have a little surprise for the audience, something like a podcast maybe or something.
Okay.
Am I allowed to
Right.
say?
Absolutely. We have a podcast. It's now 10 years old, so it's that's ancient in podcast terms.
Yes.
And I've had the privilege of interviewing many MBA admissions directors, including Eric Askins of Haas, Eddie Asby of Cornell, which should air, I think, this week. And I've also occasionally do solo shows. And I think one of the solo shows that's upcoming that's going to be particularly relevant to this audience is one where I don't go through a specific application, but I provide an approach to any MBA application,
Wow.
a holistic approach, because I think sometimes applicants either tend to focus very much on the stats or very much on the essays. They ignore the boxes or they leave them to the last minute.
Oh, yes.
The truth is that it's an integrated whole. It's evaluated as a whole. And frankly, you have to approach it as a whole. But that's a whole podcast. It's going to be up on September 20th. The name of the podcast is Admission Straight Talk. You can find it at blog.accepted.com/listen. And then just choose the MBA ones for the ones that are most relevant to you. I don't hear you. Dalal.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
No, all right. Okay, now I hear you. Okay.
I'm always used to like muting myself when someone's talking just in case.
Yeah.
All right. So thank you, Linda, for the podcast, the upcoming podcast. And we actually pinned the link for you to, click on it and listen to it on September 20th, as Linda has mentioned. Okay. So today we're going to start walking you through the Haas application. We are not going to do any essay reviews or anything like that. Today is just talking in general about the application. If you have very specific questions to your application, your profile, you are more than welcome to book Linda herself or someone from her company. So yes. So Linda, maybe we can get started before I share the screen with just the difference between the applicant who applies to the full-time MBA versus the evening and weekend versus the executive MBA, because those are the three options that you see once you start your application.
Right. Okay, so a full-time MBA is a traditional 2-year MBA with an internship in the middle. Full-time means you're not working while you're attending the MBA, or certainly not working full-time. And again, you get the internship in the middle. It is usually ideal for career changers. The part-time weekend MBA is usually more for career enhancers, people happy with their current role, but maybe wanting to go from middle management to, or from a line rather to middle management. They want to enhance their business skills, and they don't want to leave the job market. They don't want to go out to go to school full time. They want to go part time. The executive MBA is usually for people with 7-8 years of experience or more. They're usually in middle management, aiming for senior management. It is a part-time program, again, not for people who want to leave the job market for 2 years. It's for people who want to continue working. And those are the main differences between the programs.
I think most international students, Linda, apply to the full-time MBA, correct?
Correct.
Right.
Some do the executive also, but yeah.
Right. Okay. All right. I'm going to start sharing my screen. I will stop my cam. I'll share my screen here. Okay. Let's do this.
Okay.
Okay, so let's start with the application here. So, of course, you're going to have to create an application. You're going to choose the full-time MBA. We're going to open the application here. Okay, great. All right, so first and foremost, the deadlines, right?
Right.
So the deadline for round one is coming up soon, actually, after your podcast in 2 days.
That's right. That's right. So the podcast is probably more relevant, not all of it, but some of it is certainly more relevant to round two applicants. Um, I think my biggest piece of advice for the deadline is don't aim for the deadline, aim for 3 days earlier or a
Okay,
week earlier. Don't wait till the last minute. I've had too many clients submit sloppy applications because they wait till the last minute or completely miss the deadline because suddenly something comes up at work or you get sick or whatever, and you just can't do it.
right.
So aim for a little bit before the deadline. There's nothing magic about that deadline. If you set that your deadline, again, 3 days or a week earlier, it'll still be the same mad rush at the end. You'll just have the option, if need be,
Okay.
to take that extra time, and you'll be able to check your work more effectively.
Okay. Something that I want to highlight really quickly. Let me just, sorry, start my cap. So something that I want to highlight really quickly here is, so Linda, what do you think of just, you know, how sometimes they say, oh, there's more seats for round one, or your chances are higher for round one than round two or round three. What do you say to those students?
Well, let's talk about round one versus round two, first of all. All right. Actually, let's take another step back.
Yes.
My rule in terms of the rounds is very simple, and I modestly call it Linda's rule. You want to apply to the earliest round possible, provided, and provided is in caps, you don't compromise the quality of your application.
Right.
Okay. So if you can get an excellent application in round one,
Yes.
yeah, by all means do so.
Right.
You'll know earlier what's happening. You'll be submitting when the class is wide open and empty.
Yes.
There's nobody just like you who they accepted too many of the previous round. You'll have no visa issues, or you reduce the chances of visa issues. Let's put it down. I shouldn't be talking to you about that, right? You reduce the chances of visa issues if you apply earlier. It just makes sense, but it makes zero sense to rush or submit something mediocre when you could submit round two and do a superior job. Regarding round three, especially for internationals, I would try to avoid. I don't think the option is between submitting round two, something mediocre or worse.
Yes.
And round three, I think it's more like submitting round two, something really good, or waiting till next year for most international applicants. Again, there are definite differences. And I actually have a recorded webinar on the accepted website, should you apply round three or not. But it's now September. You might still be able to get in a round one application, depending upon where you're at in the process.
Right.
You certainly have the time to do an excellent job on round two if you have the work experience and necessary requirements.
Right.
So again, get it ready, aim for round two. And if something comes up and you can't do it, then you already have some things to consider in terms of round three, and go watch that webinar.
Right. Yes. So what would you say is a good period of time to prepare for your application? 3 months, 1 month? What do you think? What's a good time to give yourself?
All right. So if you're talking about one application, well, first of all, let's assume that you need a test, you've taken the test, and you're satisfied with your score.
Right.
Okay. Let's also assume that your other academic qualifications and work experience qualifications lead you to believe that you are competitive in those areas.
Yes.
All right. So you're talking strictly about producing the application. All right. So for the first application that you're working on, assuming you're applying to more than one school, I would say what you want to aim for is, what you want to allow is 3 to 4 weeks.
Yes.
Okay. Subsequent applications, it's probably more like 1 to 2 weeks per application, depending upon the complexity of the application, how similar it is to previous applications, and that kind of thing. But you definitely want to approach it one application at a time.
Okay. Okay. All right. Sometimes I tell students, like, if you have some weaknesses on your profile, like you haven't done any volunteering or any extracurricular activities or anything like that, you might want to prepare a little bit earlier than, like, a month or two, right?
Right. Right.
Okay.
Definitely. Definitely.
All right, great. So let's walk you through the application here. So application procedures, of course, there's just these are things that you need to kind of read. I think every school has some notes before you start the application. And then here is where they talk, I believe, about the transcripts. Should you kind of, for the transcripts, like if you transfer the GPA, if you don't, what do you do, right? If you have a degree, if you have obtained a degree from the US or not, right? So the international degrees as well. So I think this is very useful. And I think it answers a lot of questions that a lot of students tend to send to the outcome, right?
Right. Right. Now, I believe that Haas starts its application with its 4 principles. Am I correct?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And I think it's really, I'm going to ask you to go back to those because I think it's really, really important, specifically for Haas. Haas puts enormous emphasis on those 4 principles.
Yes.
So I'm going to read them off. Number 1, question the status quo. 2, confidence. Actually, it's not in there.
Yes,
it's not in there. Sorry, I thought it was. I made a mistake.
Okay, it's okay. I thought it was.
But I think it's really important to start discussing the Haas application by starting with those principles. Again, 1, question the status quo. 2, confidence without attitude. 3, yes. Students always. And 4, beyond self.
Yes.
So as you're filling out this application, any applicant has to keep in mind those 4 principles. Yes. I'm not saying that in terms of making up anything. It's definitely not what I'm saying. But we are multidimensional human beings with many different experiences, different aspects of our background, different things we're proud of. Those things that you're proud of that match those 4 principles that demonstrate you share those values are what you're going to be wanting to emphasize throughout the application.
Yes.
Okay. So that's my brief intro.
No, that's great. Yes, I was trying to look for them, but I should have pulled them out. Yeah, that's
they might be elsewhere. That could have been wrong. They might be elsewhere.
No, they are. I'm pretty sure they're there because I remember when I filled out my application, I saw them there, and then this is where your research comes in. Like as a student, you have to really research the website and look at the school's mission, what they care about, and all of that. So, yes, perfect. Excuse me. So of course, here is all the general information. Of course, read it before you reach out to your consultant and ask questions or the outcome. So read here, and then you have, of course, the programs. So for the dual degree programs, Linda, do you have to apply to different schools, or is it one application?
No, you have to submit separate applications, and you have to get accepted to both programs.
Yes, which is very challenging. Yes.
Right. Well, I think you did it, didn't you?
So Kellogg.
Yes, not Haas, but yeah.
But thankfully Kellogg has you just apply to the like the MMM application. Okay, great. So for reapplicant, maybe we'll talk about that later. For the interviews, of course, this is just generic information here, but we'll dive deeper right now. Okay, so let's start with the personal data. All right, so I've mentioned this in earlier videos. Of course, make sure that the name that you add here is the name on your passport or a government issued document. That's very, very important. And of course, Linda, feel free to stop me anywhere you want to make a comment as I keep going. And then do you have a lived name? And that's kind of like another word for a nickname, right?
I guess so. Yeah. I think the only thing I would emphasize about the boxes is that you need to be very factual.
Okay. Yes.
Very factual with everything. Obviously, the email address is something that you should be using regularly, checking regularly, and intend to use throughout the application process.
Yes.
Same with phone number.
Yes. Linda, do you think I, as an applicant, I should kind of really polish my LinkedIn or social media presence before I apply to Haas or anything?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Right.
Show any embarrassing photos that you would not want to show your boss, delete them. Yes. Anything that you would not want your grandmother to see, delete it.
Ooh.
Yes.
That
kind of stuff.
Okay, all right. Okay, so your mailing address, of course, bio information over here. Just so the things that don't have a star in here, basically, it's kind of really optional
Right.
to answer. But then, of course, the red star is you have to answer this, so mandatory. Okay, so here's there. So for the languages, of course, list all languages other than English. Right?
Mhm.
So no English in here, right? So other than English. Linda, how many languages do you speak? I'm just
I actually speak two,
Oh, awesome.
right? But I
Besides English?
understand a little bit about this. But yeah, but I can't emphasize the not because of I speak two languages, but the value of speaking multiple languages in the application process. If you do speak multiple languages, by all means list it. I don't care how obscure the language is or how rare the language is, definitely list it.
Yes.
It's valued.
Uh-huh. Yes. Okay, great. So country of birth, city you were born in, of course, California resident. I think this is really just about some information for data gathering or something. I'm not
Well, I think
sure.
also I think California residents pay lower tuition. So
Oh, okay. All
I
right.
believe so. Yeah,
I
I'm pretty sure.
see. I'm an international student. I had no idea.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
At
So
Haas,
uh,
not all programs.
yes. Okay. Right. Yes, because it's in Berkeley, California. Right.
Right. It's a
Okay.
UC school. It's a University of
Oh.
California
Oh. Right.
school.
That's another. Okay. So it's a UC school, which means it's a public school, right? In
Right.
America.
Public university.
Okay. Okay. All right. Perfect.
Government subsidized.
Okay, so the best options that best describe your ethnic, racial identity, right? So over here, and then your emergency contact. This is not mandatory, but I would prefer to add something in there, right? Someone
It's a good
who,
idea. Sure. Look, I've had it sometimes with members of my staff where I can't we ask them for emergency contacts because sometimes their contact information doesn't work
yeah,
with the
okay,
best of intentions.
yes, yes. All right, okay, moving on to the fun parts in here. Okay, so personal data. Linda, let's talk about the academic interest. So when I choose multiple, so if I choose like multiple values here, right? Does the school hold me accountable? And it's like, that's the something that I need to kind of pursue when I get to Haas.
No, you're not signing any contracts. You can change. However, I think if you just check them all off, you're going to seem like you don't have any focus.
That's a very good point.
And also, you're going to be asked somewhere along the way for what is your post MBA goal. So,
Mhm.
your educational interest should somehow lead to your post MBA goal. So, just
Right.
again, be authentic, be real. If you frankly, if you check every item there, you haven't thought about it very well.
Very, very good point. Right. And also I think the items need to be somewhat related, right?
Yeah,
Also flow with your story, right? So think about that before you choose. And then academic interest really is about just kind of the path that you take when you academically when you enter Haas, correct?
correct.
Okay, okay.
It's about the path you take when you enter Haas, but again, it should be related.
Right.
If you're here now and you want to be over there when you finish Haas,
Right.
Haas is a bridge. So your
Yes.
academic interests should relate to both where you're at,
Right.
should be the bridge, really.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, so the education, if you've attended a community college, in my case, I have actually. I attended Los Angeles Mission College here in LA. So,
Okay.
yeah. So, but if you haven't, don't feel obligated, right? So you can actually, it could be NA, right? Not applicable. Okay, so for the GPA, I love this section because I think a lot of people mess it up here. I actually struggled when I filled out the application to kind of calculate my GPA. What is the best way to do that, Linda?
Okay. I believe, I'm not sure. I think I would get in preparing this. I think that Haas said if you are on a foreign system, don't translate it. Is that
Yes,
correct? All right.
yes,
So this really is only for people who are on the 4.0 scale that is commonly used in the United States and maybe a few other places in the world, but not worldwide.
yes,
And then as you see, if you have an A plus, it's a 4.0. 4.0,
yes,
it's an A, it's a 4.0, 3.7. If your course, and it's just a matter of averaging the number of credits you get for
yes,
a particular course, like a good old mathematical average. And
yes,
you come up with your GPA, grade point average. GPA stands for grade point average. So
yes.
it should be, and also many transcripts list it. So you don't even have to calculate it.
Right. Yes. Yeah, absolutely. In the transcripts, actually, I remember there was definitely like the average over there. So yes, that helps. But there are resources online like GPA calculators, and
Right.
also you can use that as well, or just use your mathematical skills.
If you're going for an MBA, you should be able to calculate your
Oh
GPA.
yeah, absolutely. So number of times GMAT taken. All right. So let's just say I took the GMAT 4 times, and I'm embarrassed to tell business school that I took it 4 times. So I make up something and I say I took it 1 time only because I'm only going to send them 1 score. Is that the right approach?
No, be factual.
Okay,
Be
factual.
factual. Now, if you canceled the score, I'm not sure that's considered a take.
No.
So, but if again, throughout the application, I can't say this enough, just be factual.
Okay. Be factual. Always Linda's way. Be factual. I'll steal that word. I like it actually. I think you mentioned Linda's code or something.
It was Linda's rule was when to apply. When to apply.
All right,
Provide
so
as early as possible. Apply as early as possible, provided you don't compromise the quality of your application.
Linda's rule. I like that.
Okay.
You should change the name of Accept It, called Linda's Rules. All right. So work experience. Okay. This is a section where a lot of students really just, don't really know what to write here, get a little confused. So total paid full-time work experience from completion of undergraduate, right? So work experience is considered to be anything you've done post-undergrad, right?
And full-time.
And full-time. Okay. Would you consider anything that you did? So in my case, I started school really late. So anything that I worked, like any place I worked at before my undergrad would be considered full-time, like in the years here, right?
I don't believe so. Go back to the definition.
Okay.
Let's look at the definition. Total paid full-time work experience from completion of undergraduate study to July 2023.
Right. So it wouldn't.
So, yeah. So if you worked, let's say full-time for 2 years and then started college, those 2 years would not count in the work experience for this calculation.
Okay.
I'd still put it on your resume.
Right. Okay. All
Part
right.
of your story, but it doesn't count for this calculation.
Okay. All right. So months, of course, industry, job function, and then briefly describe your immediate post-MBA career goals. Let's talk about this section. I know it's very, very important.
Absolutely. Okay. So in terms of career goals, you need to define your career goal in terms of function. That's what you want to do.
Yes.
And the industry in which you want to do it.
Yes.
It's not the same as what you want to study. It's not the same as that educational direction box we got a little while ago.
Yes.
Sometimes location is important. For example, if you want to work in the city of London or you want to work on Wall Street, then obviously location is part of your goal.
Okay.
If you want to work in Silicon Valley, location is part of your goal. So that all matters and is part of that. You have a 150-word maximum, so you don't have a lot of room for fluff, but and you should be able to describe it. Now, in that 150 words, you might also be able to describe a little bit about your motivations for that particular goal or what experiences has particularly influenced that particular goal.
Yes, I agree.
But the function plus industry is mandatory.
Okay, and then do you think, Linda, like we should be as specific as like I want to work at this department in this company? Should my goal be as like precise, as specific as possible, or can it be just like a general industry if I'm not very clear?
A great question. I don't think it's good to say I want to work at this particular company, but you can say I want to work at a company like Company X. That's fine. Okay, that's very different. Saying I want to work at this company, well, maybe that company won't be hiring when you graduate.
Right.
But if you say I want to work for Disney, or do I want to work for a leading media company?
Okay.
Do I want to work for Google, or do I want to work for a top technology company?
Yes.
Or like Google. Very different statements.
I like that. So top technology company like Google, right? So Google can be one of the options. I like that.
Right.
I like that. Okay. All right. Good. Okay, so moving on. So, one of our goals at Berkeley is to develop leaders who value diversity and to create an inclusive environment, right?
Right.
So, can you please describe any experience or exposure you have in the area of diversity, equity, and inclusion, whether through community organizations, personal, or in the workplace? All right, let's talk
Right.
about this.
Great. So where have you been involved in increasing diversity, equity, or inclusion? That's one option. Where have you benefited? Maybe you have overcome some challenges and benefited from inclusive policy,
Yes.
or you've felt the sting of discrimination and diversity policy enabled you to join the ladder or climb up the ladder, whatever it is, or
Mhm,
assisted you in doing so.
mhm.
Um, or maybe you observed somebody being disadvantaged. Did you do something about it? What did you do? How did you
Right,
do it? How did you handle it? Those
right.
would be all possibilities. The one thing I would encourage you to do, I think there's a 150 word maximum here also. Am I correct?
Yes,
Yeah. So that's not a lot of space.
yes,
Basically, it's room for one experience. It says any experience or exposure.
right.
Um, I would focus on, if you have more than one, the most impressive one.
Okay, okay, that's a good one. Community organizations, personal or in the workplace. I mean, just think about, all the examples that you have, and like Linda said, the most impressive one. I would say also the one that influenced you or kind of changed you the most, maybe, or kind of touched your heart the most, maybe, or affected you the most. Um,
Or
um,
affected others the most, had the most
Absolutely,
impact.
right, right, absolutely, absolutely.
Um, I'd get back to those 4 principles and also in discussing this.
Yes, 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 absolutely. Okay, yeah, the principles that Linda is referring to are, I
Question the status quo. I have them up in front of me. Question the status quo. Confidence without attitude. Students always and beyond self.
yes, yes, beyond self. That's a good one.
Beyond yourself, actually, I think is the
Yes, yes. Okay, so sponsorship. So if you're financially sponsored, of course, if your MBA education will be funded by the Fulbright. The Fulbright Foundation is, I believe, that's like, is that specific to Haas or
no,
how's
no,
it?
no, no. That's a very prestigious scholarship.
That's
Um,
right, right.
yeah, yeah. I'm actually the second box. I think they're all very prestigious scholarships and not specific to Haas.
Okay,
But
okay.
the Fulbright, I'm sure of.
Yeah, I think I read about this when I applied, but I think it was something about like US citizens that I was like, "Oh, I'm not gonna apply." So I didn't care to read much, but yeah, so I've heard of it for sure. Okay, all right. So partners. So if you have a partner who is also applying to Berkeley, okay, Linda, what do you think? Berkeley asked this question, and a lot of schools actually ask this question.
Oh, if you have a partner who's applying to
Yeah,
Haas, then
why do you think Haas cares?
oh, why do they care?
Yeah.
Because if you're both accepted, you're more likely to attend.
Actually, wow, I never.
That's another indication of interest if you're both applying to the same school. Sure.
Right, right, right. Yes. If yes, which program they're applying to, right? So choose that
Right.
option. And then previous applicants. So this is for re-applicants, right?
Right.
So have you ever enrolled as a graduate student at UC Berkeley, right? And if you've applied to one of the Berkeley MBA or MFE programs, the MFE program is
Masters in financial engineering.
okay. All right. And then did you receive an undergrad or grad from UC Berkeley? So also, if you actually if you choose yes, there's instructions in here. And if you say no, of course, there's no instructions. So there's always, honestly, I love how when you click yes, there's always like boxes that come up and it's like, oh, more writing, right? They always do that. And then there's like application instructions. I love how they always have the hyperlinks to kind of guide you even more. So that's
Yeah.
great. Okay, so the dual degree programs, we spoke about that just briefly. And then here, okay, so this is a good one, Linda. So do you have to reveal all the schools that you applied to, and what would that say about you? I mean, I remember when I applied, I was kind of like, oh, should I tell them? Like, I don't. you don't want the school to think that
Yeah.
they're not your number one choice, but you also want to be honest, right? So
Right. All right. I think there's kind of two realities. I think the purpose behind the question is so the school knows it's competition.
Okay.
All right. It's not supposed to have any influence in the evaluation. And if it does, it has minimal. Why do I say if it does and minimal, etc.? Because they're human beings.
Yes.
Okay.
Right.
And if they see that, there might be some yield protection going on. In other words, if they see that you're very, very highly qualified and you're applying to Harvard and Stanford and all the other top schools, they may be thinking, you're gonna get into some of those, and will you go to them or not, right? And then conversely, if you're applying to less competitive programs and they think they may, oh, hey, this person's really gonna come to us because we're the best one on the block.
Yes.
All right. I think though, it still makes the most sense to just reply factually because you can't get inside anybody's head. I think
Yes.
the main reason here, the main purpose behind this question is to assess who is their competition.
Right, right. I'm just wondering, like in the example that you just mentioned, like if you're applying to, Harvard and Stanford, now, can the school, like, would that increase your chances in like the school actually giving you, this is a question for the outcome probably, but would that increase your chances that the schools would actually, like a school like Haas may feel like, okay, I'm going to give that person, that applicant scholarship, like a really high scholarship that they will not say no to me, or do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, no, I understand what you're saying. It's an interesting question. Again, I don't want to put too much emphasis on this.
Yes.
I think its primary goal is to assess competition.
Right.
Would they possibly look at it and make the calculation that you were saying?
Yes.
It's possible. They are human beings.
Yes.
But I would just, and also even to use the example that I gave, you're highly competitive and you're applying to Harvard and Stanford and Wharton in addition to Haas. Well, those schools are really competitive. They're hard to get into. Haas knows it.
Yes.
Haas knows Haas is hard to get into. Haas is one of the top, most difficult schools to get into,
Absolutely.
I think. An accepted selectivity index, I think it's number 4, something like that.
Very, very selective.
Very selective. So I think you're pretty safe in just answering the question.
Yes, factual.
Exactly.
Yes. Okay. So any affiliations that you have, if you have never heard of these affiliations, you can always Google them and look them up and see if you want to join any.
Right.
Okay. So, of course, how have you heard about us? Right. So that's an important question as well to answer. All right. So academic history. Okay. Oops, sorry. Academic history. Okay, so there's a video here that you should watch, right?
Right.
And then, of course.
Hello. Oops. My name is Eric Atkins. I'm the executive.
Eric is like here. We were just talking about you. Hi, Eric. It's funny like how it actually starts the video without permission, but that always scares me. Sometimes I'll be browsing something and then the video starts and I'm like,
yeah, I know.
Where did that voice come from? Okay, so adding institution, right? So this is, I think, very self-explanatory, right?
Straightforward.
So submit your transcript, of course. You don't have to submit an official transcript, right?
Because not yet.
Right. The official ones come later. Okay. Okay. So do not copy and paste institution name. So always read, right? Just read the instructions. And then the beautiful thing about, Haas here is that they put hyperlinks to just like things that they know that, with all the data that they gathered, all the questions that they get on a regular basis, they know exactly what you're looking for here, what questions you might have. So, so please take a look at the hyperlinks. Of course, over here, the GMAT, GRE, TOEFL, all of your test scores, just add them in here. Excuse me. So very self-explanatory, I believe. And then the employment. Okay, let's just make sure it doesn't. Okay, no play. All right. So for the employment section, Linda, let's talk about this. This is like the fun part over here.
Right.
Let's cover every piece of it, actually. So we have, of course, you have the organization name, current employer or not. Okay.
Right.
And then you have the just general information about the employer. You have the dates of employment, starting title. Okay. So starting title, ending title, it means if you have been promoted, right? Because they don't want you to put like, they don't want you to like add a few entries. It's like one entry for promotions, right?
Right. The reason I'd like to just emphasize something here. Your
Yes,
starting
please.
date and your ending date. Don't exaggerate. Don't falsify.
Yes.
Every few years, we come across somebody, either a new client who did it the previous cycle or a current client. They didn't ask us. They falsify the dates. And suddenly an employment gap disappears. Well, guess what? They're going to do a background check.
Right.
And when the gap reappears,
Yes.
you are probably going to have your offer of acceptance
Yes.
withdrawn. That is
Right.
devastating.
Yes.
Far more devastating than a 3 month or even a 6 month or whatever gap in employment.
Right.
So
Right.
I just be factual.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think a lot of students don't know or don't, just forget that there's like a verification background, right?
For admitted students.
For admitted students. So you want to make sure that you're always factual as well. Yes. Because it'll be hard to really explain anything after you get admitted to the company. What are you going to say? Oh, I did that by mistake or whatever. So,
Oops.
my little son did that.
My dog ate the date. I mean.
Okay. All right. So starting title, ending title, of course, if you started as an associate and then you became a senior associate, right? So don't like do 2 entries. 1 entry is enough. And then of course your payroll, right? So they don't have it as mandatory here. So can you leave a blank? Starting payroll title. Oh, this is for, okay. Okay. I get
Well,
it.
the title is mandatory. The I guess the payroll title is different.
Okay. Right.
And again, this would be in case there's some discrepancy with a background check. They want to make sure that
Okay. Yeah, I see that.
jives.
Right, because the compensation also here. See, so basic. Right. Okay. So
One other thing, if you're abroad, and then what I would do is put the numbers in, but make a note if you did like some kind of currency calculation, what you did it with and on what date you did it, and try and choose something that's public, like Wall Street Journal currency, whatever it is, or the Times of London or something like that, where you can look at a specific date and see the currency exchange rate for your currency to the dollar was X. And you've used that and you've been consistent about it with both the starting and the ending.
Okay.
And then if it's ever questioned, you can say, well, on this date, I looked up in this place, this index, that was the exchange rate.
Okay. Linda, the direct reports and then indirect reports, what's the difference? What would be a direct report and an indirect report person?
A direct report would be somebody that on an organizational chart is directly under you.
Yes.
An indirect report is somebody that's under somebody else, but ends up reporting to you. My husband worked in a large corporation for many years, and he both was at one point a direct report, but somehow worked for somebody else frequently. The somebody else, he was an indirect report to the somebody else. And then as he climbed in the ranks at that company, he also had direct and indirect reports.
Okay. All right. Clear. Okay. Hours per week, of course, company description. So company description. So even if the company is well known?
Well, if the company is well known, I would still fill it out. It's a required field.
Yes.
It becomes much more important if the company is not well known.
Right. So the information would be like a startup of 10 members or something like that.
It could be, medical device startup aiming to do XYZ.
Right.
It could be any number of things.
Okay. And the URL. So in the case that you don't have a URL, is that something that you explain in the additional information section? But what do you enter here if you don't have a URL?
I'd be really surprised.
I know, in this day and age.
Yeah, a company without a URL, that sounds more like a hobby.
Okay. Wow, they take URL seriously nowadays.
At least having one. I mean, that would
Yes.
I'd be really surprised.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Okay, so responsibilities and accomplishments. Let's talk about that. So, Linda, I've already filled my resume. I wrote, I put there the accomplishments, everything. So, how different will that be here? Because responsibilities are not accomplishments, right?
No, they're not. And you're making an excellent point. You want to focus on the accomplishments. You have a little bit more room here than you have in bullet points. So maybe you could, and you don't want to just repeat what's in the bullet points either,
Yes.
because you're wasting real estate. So
Yes.
maybe you can provide a little bit more information about some of the challenges you faced in achieving what you achieved.
Okay.
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 You definitely want to focus on the accomplishments, or you want to highlight maybe you were the youngest member of the team.
Right.
And yet you led the team. That kind of thing you might not have room for in the resume.
Okay.
So you want it to complement what's in the resume.
Okay.
But you also still want to focus on accomplishment, because accomplishments will highlight your responsibilities.
Okay, excellent.
Right?
Very good point. Yeah, I mean, you're right, because the bullet points on the resume, you only have, this much space, whereas here you can kind of elaborate more and add even more, right?
Right.
So,
They didn't. Is there a word limit there? I don't see it on the screen.
I don't see it
remember.
either. So I don't know. I don't see it either. Am I? Yeah, I don't see it either. Like, there's no.
All right. I thought maybe it came off the screen or something, but I don't remember one. And you want to, the point in the work experience section overall, not just the specific box, is you want to show career progression, because that's what Haas considers quality work experience.
Yes.
Increases in responsibility, increases in assets management, people managed. And if you had a leadership role, what was your impact in that role? What difference did you make? Those are the
Excellent.
kinds of things that you're going to want to emphasize.
Right.
Okay.
Right. Absolutely. So, Linda, let's talk about reasons for leaving, right? I mean, sometimes we all leave for different reasons. And sometimes the reasons, maybe we're ashamed to mention them. Maybe we don't want to mention them because we think it's going to affect us negatively, or how the school looks at us. What are kind of things that would be acceptable to add in reasons for leaving? I mean, yes, you got to be factual, but I don't know, maybe I can kind of say something like, well, I don't have to tell the entire truth type of thing, but I have to say something, right? So I'm not lying, of course, but I'm not saying the entire story, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. Well, let's say you left because you didn't like your boss, but you got you got a much better position. You go
Yes.
start looking for a job. You got more responsibility. You got a better salary. So you left to get more responsibility and a higher pay. You don't have to say you didn't like your boss.
Okay.
But you're still, you still got a better job, but with higher pay and higher responsibility. And that was also part of the reason you were looking for the job.
Yes.
So I don't think that's fine.
Right. Right.
I don't think you have to talk about the interpersonal motivation at that point.
Right. Okay, good point. All right. Okay, so we're done here. So just follow every single thing that we just talked about. Follow instructions, of course, for every. I don't know if they have. How many entries do you have here for Haas? I think I'm thinking like 5 or something like that. Probably.
Yeah, I don't remember.
Okay. All right. Okay, perfect. Okay, so your resume. All right, let's talk about the resume. Linda, what are the most important highlights of a resume? What does the school want to see? And, how many bullet points should we have, like, per job, for example?
All right. Well, first of all, a resume is a snapshot.
Yes.
It's a brief snapshot of what you've done professionally, and maybe a little bit of other interests, like the cherry on top at the bottom of the resume.
Yes.
In terms of how many bullet points per position, the most recent position should have the most bullet points.
Mm-hmm.
The earlier positions should have maybe 2 bullet points, or just be listed. So it's not there's no equity between positions on a resume.
Yes.
No equality there. In terms of length, Haas strongly prefers a 1-page resume.
Yes.
If you have, I think they say, extensive business or research experience, you can add a second page, but it's pretty clear for most people with 5 or 6 years of full-time work experience, or 4 to 7 years, that a one-page resume will be adequate.
Okay.
What should the bullet points emphasize? They should emphasize your leadership and impact.
Okay.
Okay. Again, keeping in mind those 4 principles.
Right.
All right. I'm going to come back to that again and again.
Yes.
That's what business schools want to see.
Okay.
They want to see that you're the kind of person that makes a difference. Haas in particular wants to see that confidence without attitude, questioning the status quo, which some people could call creative problem solving. Students always, are you willing to learn from everybody in all situations? If you make a mistake, is it a mistake or is it a failure? A failure is a mistake you don't learn from.
Oh, yeah.
All right. A mistake is something you can grow from.
Absolutely.
And then, are you giving? Are you contributing? That's beyond yourself.
Yes.
So you don't have to repeat like a parrot those 4 principles.
Yes.
That's not what they're looking for, but they're looking for you to demonstrate that you've lived those 4 principles.
Yes, I think it's really important to have the 4 principles right next to you while you're filling out the application, making sure that your application speaks highly of, like, that it covers some of these principles. Absolutely. That's a good point.
Take a sticky. All right. Put it on your computer.
Yes.
Or on your wall, whatever. And then, like you say, have them visible when you're writing.
Yes, absolutely. Okay. I know we were supposed to end now, but we had technical difficulties. Do you mind?
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Perfect. All right. So recommendations.
Hi, my name is Cindy Millette. My pronouns are.
They just keep
keep going.
Yeah, Haas is here with us. I love Haas spirit. Okay, let's talk about the recommenders. What would be a person who would what would be a good person to write your recommendation letter if you have a traditional background? And then what about the non-traditional? Like if you work for yourself or you work for your family's business?
So in the more traditional employment situations, the best person is your current supervisor. If you, for some reason, are not comfortable asking your current supervisor, then you can ask a previous supervisor. You can ask one of those indirect supervisors, or somebody in a superior role in your current employer or at a previous employer. What they really want to see is a confirmation of your abilities from somebody other than you, a second opinion on your talents and capabilities.
Yes.
That's one of the reasons, by the way, that they don't want you to write the letter of recommendation for somebody else's signature. They're really trying to get somebody else's perspective on your capabilities.
Yes.
Now, if you're in the non-traditional role where maybe you're self-employed or you're working for a family business, if you're working for a family business, don't ask your mother or father to write you a recommendation. Okay, that does not carry a lot of credibility.
Yes.
Don't ask your grandmother to do it either. It again doesn't carry much credibility.
You would write a great one, though.
I guarantee you, I'd write a great one for any of my grandchildren, and with complete objectivity, of course. Anyways, what you should do then, though, is you can ask a very good client to write one. You can ask perhaps a service provider like your accountant or your attorney to write one. You might ask a supplier if you have a really close relationship with one, somebody that you have a good business relationship with and who could write you that letter of recommendation.
Okay.
Again, not a family member.
Okay, perfect. And then just to emphasize, really, if your recommender is not comfortable writing English, as long as you can get it translated by an ATA certified translator, you are good to go. You're fine.
Right. And that's, again, that would be better, much better than having a poorly written letter of recommendation because your recommender doesn't write English well.
Absolutely.
Or writing it yourself for his or her signature.
That's a big no. Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
All right, great. And then, of course, you want to make sure that you waive your right to access the report, right?
Correct.
Okay. Okay. All right. Okay, let's move on to the essays, and we're going to conclude with the essays here and maybe some optional information essay or something. Let's see. So let's talk about the essays. So how many essays do we have for Haas? So we have essay 1, we have essay 2, correct? And then we have supplemental information. So let's talk about essay 1 for a second. What makes you feel alive when you're doing it, and why? I love that question. It made me really think. It made me really think. How would we approach this question here?
I think you'd start with a description of the activity. Okay. If you like hiking, it might be your favorite hike on a gorgeous day. Just briefly describe it and then go into why. Or it might be some of the volunteering that you're doing. Right. Which would definitely fit with some of Haas's values. For me, I like hiking, so that's why I chose it. But it might be a political activity. I have a relative who's very active in one of the political parties, and that to him is his life. Again, and that would kind of go with the beyond self and Haas's values, question the status quo, etc.
Yeah.
So, you can choose, think about what you really, really enjoy doing, and then choose one of those activities that shows fit with Haas.
Yes.
And also discuss, don't forget the why part. That's really an important part of the question. Why do I like hiking? Why does this relative like the work that he does in politics?
Yes.
Why does it make him feel alive? Maybe it's a sense of contribution that he gets. I haven't asked him the question, so I don't really know. But maybe it's a sense of contribution. Maybe it's volunteering twice a month at a soup kitchen.
Yes.
Whatever it is, that's what you should be discussing. And again, what is it and why is it important to you?
Yes. What makes you feel alive? I think this question really requires a lot of really, just like reflecting, right? Like,
Oh, absolutely.
Because it says it in here, personal experience, right? That helps the reader to get to know you better. So that is the objective of this question. I think I wrote, Linda, about singing, right? And
Wonderful.
and I think my why was because of independence, making me feel independent and that kind of freedom, So I have to really think a lot about it, because there's a lot of things that sometimes make you feel alive. So you're like, you have to really choose that experience that you believe that's going to tell Haas more about you and reveal more about your character and values, right? Because they mention
Absolutely.
it. Yeah.
Good point.
Yes. Okay, great. So for essay number 2, what kind of leader do you aspire to be and why? So here's a question, Linda. For the 2 questions, I think because we've really gotten used to the whole, with Stanford, for example, there's why Stanford, right? So like talking about like Stanford and why Stanford,
So what matters to you most and why?
Right. And then the why Stanford. And I think a lot of schools have this section where you actually talk about what you like about the school in terms of like either classes or community or clubs or students that you spoke with and all that. So in the both of these essays, we are not really talking about like what we like about Haas, right?
Right. 100% right.
Right.
But again, if you keep those 4 principles in mind, being factual, being true to yourself, being authentic, you will be, and you've already discussed what you want to get out of the MBA.
Yes.
And you provide your educational direction.
Mm-hmm.
So they're kind of seeing why you want Haas. You've discussed your work experience. That's where you've been.
Right.
Discuss what you want to do educationally. Discuss your post-MBA goals.
Yes.
Well, they can figure out pretty quickly if they can help you get from where you are to where you want to go.
Yes. And if you fit. Absolutely.
Absolutely. So then you get to the other areas. Again, do you share those 4 principles as your values?
Yes.
Are you going to fit well into their community?
Mm-hmm.
That's where these essays come in.
Okay. So for this question here, Linda, what kind of leader do you aspire to be and why? That's also one of those broad questions.
Very broad. Very broad.
It's not a yes and no question, really,
No.
So what kind of leader do you aspire to be and why? I love these questions. Linda, just really a side note here, just really quickly, do kind of like the people who create these questions, do you know if they're like part of the AdCom or some psychologists or what?
Well, I don't know specifically about Haas, number one. I do know that Yale, for example, their question, which is about, I think, your most serious commitment that you ever undertook, was definitely from somebody in their industrial psych or leadership development program.
Yes, I remember.
So sometimes that is true. Sometimes it's the admissions committee. Sometimes they'll kind of be tweaking questions.
Yes.
They obviously have different things that they're looking for.
Yes. Yes.
But I think there's one commonality among all the schools for all the essays. They're trying to get to know the applicant.
Yes. Yes.
Right. And these questions from Haas in particular, they're saying, we got your resume, we got your work history, we have your transcript. We want to know something different with these essay questions.
Yes.
And that's, by the way, that's also usually true about the essay questions. They don't want a repeat of the resume or the transcript or all the boxes they already read.
Absolutely.
They want something more insightful, more personal.
That's a very good point, right? Because sometimes we tend to repeat because it's easier, or we take that bullet point and we elaborate more on it, right? Just kind of because it's the easiest thing to do or something. But I think this is your opportunity to reveal a lot of things about yourself to the school.
Your humanity.
Absolutely. So, and I ask this question because when I read the questions, what kind of leader do you aspire to be and why? Like, it really taps into your soul. It makes you kind of be like, oh my God, I've never thought of this.
I think, well, also, I think more and more business schools, MBA programs, I attended the AGEC conference in May and also the previous year. And in each conference, they interview 3 business school deans, like the keynote, if you will, for the conference. And they don't see themselves as merely teaching business. Okay. They see their schools as preparing leaders for the future.
Right.
Teaching leadership. Now, obviously, part of leadership is managing scarce resources, and that's what business does. But, this idea that you are developing leaders for society, for our future, et cetera, is something that's really important to business schools.
Yes.
And that's why I think you have this kind of question.
Right. Right. Yeah. And of course, don't forget the why, right?
Don't forget the why. Absolutely. Thank you.
Don't forget the why. Absolutely. So let's just conclude here with the supplemental information. So it does, oh, wow, we actually have more in here and we don't have enough time. So let's just kind of just really do it really quickly here. So for supplemental information, I think this is saying, like, if you've not provided a letter of recommendation from your current supervisor, just explain why, right? So maybe, okay, I'm self-employed, I work for the family, whatever it is.
Right? I felt my supervisor wouldn't give me good projects.
Yes. I don't like my supervisor.
No, you don't want to put that, but you can't, I mean that, that would limit my responsibility going forward or whatever.
Yes, absolutely. So in here, of course, it says list in order of importance, community and professional organization, extracurricular activities. And this could be an example of
beyond self. Beyond self.
Exactly.
Beyond yourself.
Exactly. Right. So religious activities or extra, so community activities, anything like that. And I think this is very self. So just really quickly, Linda, this is like, so you write it down, you write like the name of organization. So every single line, it's not like an essay form.
No, this is bullet points. This is really brief, succinct, just like they laid out. Follow the instructions.
Okay. List full-time, part-time jobs held during undergrad. And this is if you've done any, like if you, for example, attended your undergrad and you bartended on the side.
Exactly.
Okay. All right. Perfect. Okay. Factual, right? Academic discipline, probation, right? So
again, be factual, own up, own it.
Yes.
Take responsibility, admit mistakes. They're not failures if you've learned from them. Admit mistakes.
That's a good point. It's acknowledging that happened and maybe explaining a little bit why, right?
Provide context and take responsibility. Yes. Don't try and push it off on your roommate or your parents or somebody else. You made a mistake, own it, and say that you haven't done anything that stupid sense. Okay.
Yes. Yes. All right, great. So again, it says like if you answer this right, like an affirmative response does not disqualify you from admissions. So,
Right.
and they're honest about this. It's real. So, okay, optional information. I think they want to know about your parents in here, like just like information.
Right. Just answer it.
Yes, if you have not spoken, if English was not your primary language, indicate that. If you have taken care of a significant other financially, please indicate that as well. And if you have, elaborate on that response, right?
Right, right. Again, some people have additional challenges in life and they want to know about them because it will magnify your achievements.
Yes. I think so too. It does say it over here, expand on other hardships and unusual life circumstances. So really, this is kind of really another opportunity to tell Haas who you really are and what you've overcome.
Exactly. Provide context.
Yes. Additional optional information. It does say it here. I love how they have very, like Haas is one of those schools that actually tells you exactly what they're looking for, and I love that about Haas. So employment gaps, right? Academic aberrations. And what is that being? Academic aberrations. I've never heard that word.
Academic aberration is you're going through college and you got maybe a 3.5, 3.7, everything's fine. And then tragically you're in a bad car accident.
Yes. Okay.
And you have to miss some weeks of school and maybe you have rehab or physical therapy and your grades take a nosedive. Once you recuperate, your grades go back up. That would be an academic aberration.
You want to know something interesting? I don't know if this is interesting, but the story that you just mentioned is exactly what happened to me.
Oh my goodness.
I had a car accident. I had a jaw surgery and my grades actually got really affected. And that's what I wrote in there. So I was like, wait, does Linda know my history?
No, I did not know. I made that up. But obviously it happens. It happens to real people.
Yes,
sometimes you can have mental health episodes. Depression also is another
yes.
Cause for this kind of thing.
Yes.
And
yes. Okay, great. So we're going to just really quickly here. So application fee waivers, of course, you can request that and read the instructions, a scholarship as well, and then your signature and reviewing the application. Linda, do you want to say something? Maybe like to kind of conclude this session, is there anything that you want to mention maybe about the links of accepted here on your website?
Well, thank you very much. I'd be delighted. So the MBA admissions calculator is, that's just one slide from the calculator. It's a way for you to assess how competitive you are at your target schools. It's a quick quiz. You'll get feedback on your responses, suggestions for additional resources where you can improve some things that perhaps need improvement, encouragement where you can just be encouraged because your answer was very good. Yes. And that's the purpose of it. It's free. The resources that are linked to are mostly free. And go ahead, take advantage of it. It's there for you.
Yes, I love this. Like not a lot of companies do that. So thank you for providing that. I think a lot of students want a little bit of a profile evaluation to just kind of know the direction. So thanks for that. Then we have, of course, the Listen MBA podcast. So this is the podcast.
Straight Talk podcast. Mm-hmm.
Yes. Oh, I'm sorry. I was talking about the link. So,
yeah.
All right, great. So you have that as well.
Right. And
feel free to,
So you'll see that there are many interviews. If you scroll down a little bit, you'll see that we have quite a few interviews with all kinds of admissions directors, including UCLA's, University of Michigan's. We have test prep information. So you have ACE executive assessment there, which is primarily for the EMBA, but some regular MBA programs accepted also. Empowering international students with financing for grad ed, how to write a great statement of purpose. When should I apply to grad school? Why I think that this year is a great time to apply, because I suspect that with the Fed's response to inflation is going to kick the country into recession, and ultimately unemployment is going to go up. And when unemployment goes up, so does application volume. That hasn't happened yet, so apply now, assuming you're ready. That's the show in a nutshell, but you can listen to it and get more. Again, sometimes interviews with either MBA students or recent grads. how to get into HEC Paris, applying to Wharton Lauder, Alyssa Sangster, head of Forte, which has its own scholarship, UW's Foster School of Business, the admissions director there, all kinds, NYU Stern. So there's a lot there for MBA applicants, I think valuable interviews with different people. And again, it's free.
Yes, and then testing, see what's the right test prep for you. So also GMAT, GRE, probably resources as well. So
right.
This is great. And then you also have under MBA guides, you have a lot of resources here as well.
Yes, we have the recorded webinars. If you click on MBA guides, you'll see the guides specifically. Why MBA, writing a good goals essay question, which you don't have to do for Haas. A guide to choosing the right business schools for you is best MBA programs, MBA action plan, just different guides. Choosing an MBA admissions consultant, I hope you'll choose accepted, but there's a guide on how to choose one. The ultimate guide to becoming a competitive MBA applicant, leadership and admissions, what does that mean? And, just all kinds of different guides to help you apply effectively. They're all free.
This is amazing, Linda. Honestly, this is very helpful for a lot of students who are right now applying. So thank you so much for your time. And someone asked a question, but
what's the question?
Well, I'm very much interested in UC Berkeley full-time. I mean, considering its Bay Area location, I belong to IT. Okay, so working as an AVP IT in Indian Bank with 14 years of experience, can or should I apply, basically, with his 14 years of experience?
Right. Well, 14 years of experience would typically put you in the executive MBA cohort. I can't tell you just with this whether you should or shouldn't apply to the full-time program. You may also want to consider, here are some full-time one-year programs for people who are more advanced in their career. And that would be the MSX from Stanford, the MIT Sloan Fellows MBA, and the London Business School Sloan Fellows program. Those are some things some programs that you may want to consider that would be happy to have you with your 14 years of experience.
Absolutely, because you'll add so much value to the class. Linda, thank you so much for your generosity. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your valuable, expertise and input and everything you've done today to help the students. So I really appreciate you guys. If you want to apply to business schools, just go ahead and look at visit accepted.com and book a free consultation with Linda, and someone will be right there to help you. Thank you so much, Linda.
Thank you very much for having me. Have a very good rest of your Sunday.
Thank you so much.
Take care. Okay. Bye-bye.
Good luck, everyone. Goodbye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.